are on step-by-step 4.13. We're on page 133, and we're going to be starting with creating a simple bouncing ball, much like the one that we saw earlier. You should have an untitled document right here in the tab here, and we're going to save this. So we're going to go File, Save As. You're going to find your documents, 5th, 6 weeks, and you're going to name this. Now, we are in 1A this period, so somebody in 1A would go 1A, last name, first initial. Now, be sure you put your last name and your first initial, underscore La Pilota, LA-PELOTA, as spelt in the directions on page 133, but with your name and period in front of it. Be sure you follow the instructions, but with this added in front of it, so I can identify who did it when you turn it in. Once you do that, you click Save. Make sure you put it in your 5th, 6 weeks folder so you can find this later. We don't want files scattered everywhere. Now, what does pelota mean in Spanish? Ball. So that means the ball, which is what we're about to draw in Flash. Now, just so you know, all Flash files that you are working on in progress end with the .fla file extension. The FLA file is editable with the layers and all that, but when you export it to be played in a player, much like Premiere or the graphic softwares you export as a JPEG or GIF, it's a different format that's uneditable. It's compressed, it's playable in most browsers and players and such. But you always keep the original FLA file so you can do all the edits. We got it saved. On the timeline, we're on number 5 on the bottom of page 133. On the timeline, click in frame 1 of layer 1. So look at the top under the timeline, layer 1, click in frame 1 to select it. In the toolbar, you're going to choose the oval tool. You can press O. Only press O one time. Make sure you got the oval tool and not the oval primitive tool. The oval primitive tool has that line in the middle. So if you press O again, you can switch in between the oval and the oval primitive tool. Just make sure you got the correct one. Now we're going to set the stroke color to none. Remember, the stroke and fill is at the bottom of the toolbar. You're going to click on the stroke color, and what does that little red / do? Changes it to no color. So we got the stroke to none. You can also change it in the properties panel right here. So we got stroke as none, and we're going to set the fill to orange. So I'm going to click in the fill. I'm going to choose this orange right here with the hex FF993F. We got just a fill, no stroke color. Now I'm turning the page on 134. We're still continuing 4.13. And we're going to draw a circle near the middle of the stage. Now the best way to get something exactly in the middle is you put your little crosshair right in the middle. If you hold down Option, you can create from the center out. And if you hold down Option or Alt and Shift, you can create a perfect circle. So I'm going to hold down Option and Shift at the same time. Look at mine. And I'm holding down Shift and Alt or Shift and Option, and then I'm going to release the mouse, and I got a circle. So we have our orange circle. Next, we must create a motion tween for our circle. But when you're animating something, before you create a motion tween, this is a rule that you must always remember. Before you create a motion tween, your object must be converted to a symbol. I'm going to use my selection tool, press V as in Victor, and that quickly selects the black arrow as the selection tool. And I'm going to click on my circle. We're going to go to the top menu and go Modify Convert to Symbol, or F8. So click on the circle and you can choose Modify Convert to Symbol. Now you got the Convert to Symbol dialog box. And we're going to name this symbol Ball, B-A-L-L. Just so you know, for type, we're going to choose graphic. This is very important that you choose graphic for this. And then registration, make sure it's like the center dot. That way it's always the center point of reference there. So 3 very important things before you click OK. Name it ball, change the type to graphic, and registration, the little center square. And then click OK. So now, since it's converted to a symbol, it's got a imaginary blue square around it. Also, another thing you need to know is when it converts it to a symbol, Flash saves this symbol in the library for this file, La Pelota. To see your library, you just go Window, Library, or Command L. See, now that it's converted to a symbol, you have ball right there listed. Well, what's cool is when you got symbols, you can always reuse them and drag them onto your stage and make multiple copies. We'll go more into how the library works a little bit later. In the directions, we are number 10 on page 134. We got our ball symbol selected, and I want you to go insert classic tween. Insert classic tween. You can't see anything just yet in this frame, but you'll see that classic tween when we make the next keyframe in the next step. Make sure everybody did insert classic tween in frame 1. And now on the timeline, I want you to click one time in frame 5. See, it's blue, it's highlighted and selected. And I want you to press F6 on your keyboard. F6. What we did was the same as going insert timeline keyframe. Now what we did was we created this keyframe in frame 5. Frame 1 was point A, frame 5 is point B. Now that little arrow that you see in between, that's that motion tween that we created in step number 10 on page 134. That arrow is that motion tween. The motion tween does all the motion between point A, which is frame 1, to point B, which is keyframe number 5. We're in keyframe number 5 on the timeline, so make sure you click in that, number 5. Click on the selection tool on the toolbar, or press V as in Victor, and drag the circle to the bottom of the stage. So watch me do it. Keep in mind this solid bullet in this keyframe indicates that you created content in this keyframe. If there was nothing on the stage in that keyframe, it would be an empty circle. So we drag the circle to the bottom of the stage. Now on the timeline at the top, I want you to click in frame 10. We're on number 14 on the directions. And I want you to press F6 again. What does F6 do, class?
Keyframe.
It makes a keyframe. Once you already have a motion tween set, each time you create a keyframe, it keeps that motion tween. So you don't have to insert a motion tween each time. F6 creates a keyframe. That's very important that you know that. We're on page 135. Now I want you to move the circle. Make sure you're in frame 10, and I want you to click on the circle and move it back to the center. So now we got 3 keyframes in the timeline. That's point A, point B, point C. The motion tween does all the motion in between. Now we're going to see how the motion tween plays out. I want you to go Window, Toolbars, Controller. Window, Toolbars, Controller. You got this controller here. You also got one down here at the bottom of your timeline. Now I want you to hit play. Hit play. See? The ball bounces. That motion tween does all the motion in between those keyframes, which are point A, B, and C. So that's how awesome Flash is with motion tween. It does all the motion in between. Let's save our progress. File save. And we'll be ready for the next step.
Thank you all for watching.
Hey class, if you like this video, please click like below and subscribe to this channel. Also, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.